What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to my next mock draft. Quick reminder, please do hit that like button as well. If you enjoy my draft content, you want the full TFG Draft Insider Package, my full draft board with evaluations on every player in the class, as well as exclusive film breakdowns and exclusive team-specific 7-round mock drafts, head over to patreon.com/ThatFranchiseGuy and you can get the full package. So this mock draft, if you've ever wondered why I do the 1.0, 2.0, that little decimal in there, it is so I can do different variations of the mock as we move to different steps of the scouting stage. Obviously, we've got free agency and the combine coming up that will drastically change team needs and my evaluations on players. Also, always collecting new information and watching more film. Anyway, this variation 2.1 will be kind of locking in certain picks. You guys know most of my mock drafts are fully what I would do. Guys like Tua and Justin Herbert, guys I'm not as high on as general consensus, have been falling in recent mock drafts. Well, this time, because I think those guys will go higher, I am going to lock them in inside the top 10 to certain picks where I think they actually will go, which obviously will impact what players are available and how the rest of the draft will play out. So a little different for this mock draft. That is why we do those decimals and to keep things a little fresh. So without further ado, let's hop in here. The first pick, not going to change, Joe Burrow, consensus first overall pick. This is what they will do and what I think they should do. Number 2, the Washington Redskins. We're going to stick with Chase Young here. This is not going to be the trade-up situation for Tua. When you really look at it, I think teams know to pry Chase Young away from the Redskins, they're going to have to give up a lot more than they would to move up with, say, Detroit or even the New York Giants. Chase Young, probably the best player in this class. The Redskins may or may not have whiffed on Montez Sweat last year. You got Ryan Kerrigan not getting any younger. So this is kind of an automatic pick for me if I'm the Redskins. And then with the third pick, this is going to be that trade. So Detroit, we've been having Jeff Okudah there. They can move down, probably still get their guy at 5. If not, they're still looking at a similar caliber prospect. They got plenty of needs. And for me, it is going to be the Miami Dolphins trading up. Now, personally, I think this would be a mistake. You know, I don't hate Tua. I am lower on his evaluation in general. I still do think he's a first-round caliber quarterback for sure and a very high-floor type of guy. He's not going to have the situation he had at Alabama, thrown to arguably the best wide receiving core we've ever seen at the college level. And now he's coming in here to Miami, who's giving up picks to then add offensive linemen to the mix here. This was one of the worst offensive lines we've ever seen. I just have a hard time seeing this returning the value and getting this elite franchise quarterback, especially behind this offensive line. But again, I think this is what's going to happen. I think they're going to move up so that teams like maybe the Chargers, the Raiders, the Colts, some of these other teams maybe in the mix here don't come up to do this. Maybe even Carolina. Now you give up that 18th pick. That was, I think, the pick you got for Minkah Fitzpatrick, a future third-round pick. So you're basically trading Minkah Fitzpatrick away to ensure you can get Tua. So again, definitely not what I would do, but something that I think will happen that I want to portray that scenario in my mock drafts. Number 4, the New York Giants. We're sticking with Andrew Thomas. He keeps sliding down draft boards, and you know, the more mock drafts, the more casual fans read, it's like, oh, this is a reach. I don't necessarily understand why Jedrick Wills has all of a sudden just surpassed Andrew Thomas. I think it's kind of that, I don't know if you'd call it recency bias, but the new toy, the new guy emerges. Andrew Thomas has been a golden boy at Georgia for 3 years, kicking ass, taking names, grades better than Jedrick Wills, just as good of an athlete. Technique's better as a pass blocker. He's no slouch as a run blocker. To me, he's the most polished tackle in this class. He's one of the cleanest tackle prospects coming out in a long time. Sure, Jedrick Wills just might have a slightly higher upside because he's a little stronger, but I'll take the polished pass blocking technique of Andrew Thomas ahead of that for sure. So I'm sticking with Andrew Thomas at number 4. And then the Lions, after they move down here, you're still going to land Jeff Okudah here. Now they're shopping Darius Slay. Whether or not you keep him, this is still a need. You need 2 really good corners to have a really effective defense in the NFL these days. I like Amani Oruwariye. Maybe he continues to develop and over time replaces Darius Slay, but this is a plug-in number 2 corner right away. and all of a sudden you got one of the best secondaries in the entire NFL. Definitely the best cornerback trio, because you got Coleman in the slot as well. And then the 6th pick, this is another one I'm kind of locking in here. Absolutely would not make this pick if I were the GM. I cannot stress that enough. I haven't had Justin Herbert in my first round mocks up to this point. I've got a 2nd to a 4th round grade on him. My comparison for him is Paxton Lynch. He screams Blake Bortles. He screams Mitchell Trubisky, the tall white quarterback with a cannon arm who gets locked in on his first reads and misses every 4th throw. Every time he unleashes the ball, you're holding your breath that it's within a 5-yard radius of his target. Yeah, he looked accurate at the Senior Bowl. I'm not going to ignore 2 years of tape that tells me that. So, unfortunately, I do think he's going to be a top 10 pick. We see this year after year after year. The teams get suckered into a player like this. I like the Chargers front office, but as a team, with the transition, losing Phillip Rivers, I think this is probably, more likely than not, going to be the team that pulls the trigger on Justin Herbert, which is really unfortunate for Chargers fans. 7th pick here, the Carolina Panthers. So I've been going AJ Epenesa, getting further along on my evaluations here. I do think it's a little rich for Epenesa. I think he's a great player, super high floor, but maybe a little lower of a ceiling than I had maybe thought. I think he's like a better version of last year's Clelin Ferrell. Someone that's worth, pick 16 to 32. Not necessarily a top 7-4 pick if you're the Raiders last year. So we're actually going to trade down. I love this situation for the Panthers. As I keep saying, this team's not going to be any good next year. I think David Tepper, the owner, knows that. You got Trevor Lawrence in the draft next year. So move down, puts you in a position where you actually might not win as many games this year because you don't get that super high impact rookie, but you pick up a future first round pick in the process. There's also not a ton of value at their biggest needs right now. That's the biggest reason you trade down here. Cornerback, edge rusher, tight end. So it's a no-brainer to move down if you're Carolina. And it's the Philadelphia Eagles moving up. To make this move, they're going to give up pick 21. They're going to give up their first round next year, and then it's going to be a 3rd, 4th round swap. So the Panthers are going to get the Eagles' 3rd round pick next year. So loading up on picks for the future for Carolina. Move down where you're going to see similar value with your biggest needs anyway. And it's the Eagles that are going to take Jerry Jeudy, reminiscent of the Atlanta Falcons moving up for Julio Jones. A huge need there at wide receiver. They need a separator in this class. They don't want to wait around until 21. Risk that Henry Ruggs is there. So give up the picks, move up, fill your biggest need. This team is in a win now window anyway. And then the Arizona Cardinals at number 8. So I am going to stick with Derrick Brown here. I said it in the last mock. This is a great fit here. The number one problem for this team, for the Arizona Cardinals, for me, is just toughness and really some oomph on that defense. And you put Derrick Brown in the middle of that defense, all of a sudden you've got a 2-gap defensive lineman that's a handful to block, that's also going to contribute as a pass rusher, get that inside pressure to help Chandler Jones on the edge. So all that's great, and Derrick Brown to me is a super safe, great pick. Now the reason this is tough is because you do have CeeDee Lamb there, would be a great value. Put him back in the scheme with Kyler Murray as well. To me, that's another finesse pick that doesn't fill that toughness gap that this team has. And then also Jedrick Wills is there, and when I look at this team, what they did with Justin Murray at right tackle, like an undrafted pickup basically off the streets, who's bounced around a couple teams. They just re-signed DJ Humphries as well to a big deal. I love Jedrick Wills, and that'd be a great pick here. I think this team's looking at that offensive line as like, we don't necessarily need elite offensive linemen, but we're going to get rid of the ball pretty quickly. We're going to rely on Kyler Murray's ability to sense pressure and extend plays with his feet. I think that Derrick Brown is something that, basically is a position that can't be elevated thanks to Cliff and thanks to Kyler, if that makes sense. They need Derrick Brown. Jedrick Wills would be a nice pick, but thanks to what Cliff and Kyler can do, you can elevate other tackles, guys like a Justin Murray, or in a deep tackle class, maybe you find someone in the 2nd round. But I get it if you want CeeDee or Jedrick Wills. All right, number 9, the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is the Isaiah Simmons pick. To me, this is perfect. A lot of people are going to have him as a top 5 pick. I've seen him to the Giants as a true middle linebacker a bunch. I don't see him that way. I see him as a Derwin James type of player who's going to play that strong safety, nickel corner, weak side linebacker, hybrid modern position, which is awesome. But if you're the Giants, you take him at number 4, or the Lions at 3 or 5 or whatever, and you play him as a true inside linebacker where he only played about 80, 90 snaps in college at least in his final year, I don't think you're going to get returned value as a top 5 pick. I think he'd be good at that, but I think he's going to excel as that box safety, which here in Jacksonville, that's what he's going to play. Either he plays the Cam Chancellor role in this Seattle-based defense, or Telvin Smith doesn't return and he plays weak side linebacker more outside the tackles. He's actually physically very similar to Telvin Smith at a lengthy 6'3". Simmons might even be 6'4". So great fit. Number 10, this is going to be Jedrick Wills. Don't even need to explain this. This is a steal for Cleveland. I've had Jedrick Wills going much earlier in the past. This is the result of, Tua and Herbert going in the top 10 like they probably will. If I was the GM picking for every team, not 8 out of the top 10 picks in the top 10 here, there's no way the Browns would get Jedrick Wills, but that quarterback just gets pushed up a little bit. And then the 11th pick, the Jets, CeeDee Lamb, no-brainer pick here, especially with Wills and Thomas gone. Get that number 1 wide receiver. I think Lamb and Jeudy are very close to the 2 guys that I see as true number 1 wide receivers. Pretty rare to be able to find that guy, so go get him if you're the Jets for Sam Darnold. Start giving him some weapons to really help him develop. Then we've got the Raiders at number 12. I'm going to take Jordan Love here. I'm a big fan of Jordan Love. I think he's just got a much higher upside than Derek Carr. Every time I watch Derek Carr, there's a bunch of third downs every game where I'm just like, where is it? He's fine. But against the Broncos, week 17, he's rolling out on a screen play. The screen gets covered up, but he has room to at least try to run for the first down. And instead of doing that, he just chucks it into the dirt of the screen and is a throwaway on third down. It's like that kind of stuff. The inability to just kind of have that it factor and be a playmaker, despite the fact that he has all the tools to do it, is just so frustrating. I think Gruden's getting tired of it week after week after week. Get a guy who has those playmaking instincts. You can redshirt Jordan Love. Do what you did in Kansas City with a Patrick Mahomes. Try to get that upside out of Jordan Love as you develop him behind Carr for a year. You also got the move to Vegas. I'm sure there's a lot of Utah State fans in that part of the country, so create a little hype. This is a great pick for me for the Raiders. I know a lot of Raiders fans are standing by Derek Carr. I think that's a mistake. Pick 13, Indianapolis. This has been Jake Fromm for me, but in this world, a guy in Tristan Wirfs is available, so that's going to be the pick here. I'm still interested in Jake Fromm if I'm the Colts. Another kind of bit of information being collected here is it sounds a lot like Philip Rivers is going to Indianapolis, which is going to kind of upgrade that quarterback situation, buy you more time to find the quarterback of your future. So a little bit less of a pressing need, kind of with my belief that Philip Rivers will end up here. But Costanzo's going to be 32 in August, and he's set to be a free agent. So I don't think he's going to be there forever. That offensive line is the best thing Indianapolis has going for them right now. A lot of Colts fans are going to see this pick, and I think the smartest ones are going to really like this because you see how this just secures the tackle situation there for basically the entire career for the most part of whatever quarterback you bring in there, because you got Braden Smith at right tackle, and hell, maybe Wirfs can do what another former Iowa lineman Brandon Scherf did and just upgrade your situation at right guard for the time being, and then you have just a ridiculous offensive line. So we're going to pick up the pace a little bit here. We're getting a little long. Tampa Bay, Javon Kinlaw at 14. This has been a pick for a while. Put him next to Vita Vea on the inside, and all of a sudden that defense is starting to look really scary with pretty dominant players on all 3 levels, at least the upside to get there. The 15th pick, Denver. I'm sticking with Trevon Diggs. A lot of Broncos fans hoping this pick's going to be Henry Ruggs. I almost did it this time. I really did. But I look at the depth at wide receiver in this class, and then I look at the depth at corner. 2 glaring needs for the Broncos. Chris Harris did an interview with PFF. He's gone. He was not really entertaining the possibilities of returning to Denver. That makes corner a preposterously large need for this team. I can't stress that enough. And there's depth at wide receiver, and you already have Courtland Sutton. I need to get a corner. I think Trevon Diggs is the second best corner in this class. I'm pulling the trigger there still. 16th pick, the Atlanta Falcons. AJ Epinesa is still there. I keep saying Atlanta needs to get more physical. They're still standing with that Seattle scheme there with Dan Quinn. He can play the Michael Bennett role in this defense. He can be an elite run defender right away on the edge. He can generate pressure on the inside, but he can also kick inside as well and help Grady Jarrett. So I think it's an outstanding fit. I think AJ Epenesa was destined to play in one of these cover 3 Seattle 4-3 schemes. So a great fit there. 17th pick, Dallas. We are going to mix it up here. I'm going to take Xavier McKinney. They need help in the back end of that defense. A great value here for Xavier McKinney. All he seemed to do was make plays at Alabama. I think it's about the right value. I think it's a huge need for Dallas and could very well be the pick in real life. Pick 18, where the Detroit Lions traded down. So you got your corner earlier. I'd certainly consider an edge rusher here. But the thing is, Matt Patricia, coming from that Bill Belichick scheme, they don't really put a priority on traditional edge rushers. They like bigger bodied gap control guys. If AJ Epenesa were to fall a couple more picks here, I think that would absolutely be the pick here for Detroit. So I'm looking at linebacker here. Between Kenneth Murray and Patrick Queen, the pick for me is going to be Kenneth Murray, just because, again, Matt Patricia, Bill Belichick, they don't like small linebackers. They want versatile guys that can come inside, play the run. If you're playing on the outside, they want you to be able to rush the passer. So to me, that's why Kenneth Murray is the pick here. And you just hope that he works out better than JrOT Davis, who was actually kind of a similar prospect coming out, to be honest. But I do believe in Kenneth Murray a little more. The 19th pick, where the Raiders are sitting. This team has so many needs. You basically need to replenish the entire defense, in my opinion. You need receivers. Interior offensive line's getting older. You don't have a second-round pick at this point. So I am going to entertain trade offers. And one team that I think could make a pretty splashy trade here is the Green Bay Packers. Especially in a what I would do mock draft, I want to aggressively attack the playmakers available for Aaron Rodgers if I'm Green Bay. All of last season, they just rolled out Devontae Adams and literally a bunch of XFL caliber guys and Allen Lazard. They need some speed, they need some separation, so we are going to give up pick 30, the second round pick 62, a future 4th round pick, and we're going to include Allen Lazard to give kind of that Michael Crabtree-esque big-bodied target there for Derek Carr, another weapon for Jordan Love down the road. Come up here to pick number 19 and take Henry Ruggs. Don't really need to explain why Green Bay needs that, but I think that's really a missing piece for this offense. And I think for the Raiders, outside of maybe Patrick Queen being a great pick here, this makes a ton of sense because you get a low-end starter in Allen Lazard, or at least someone to compete there. But more importantly, you get 2 picks in the 1st and 2nd round now, as opposed to just 1. And you do have that deep threat speed in Tyrell Williams, and you got run after catch guys underneath guys like Josh Jacobs and Darren Waller that Derek Carr likes to use much more than those deep threats anyway. So pick 20, CJ Henderson. We're mixing this up from Kristian Fulton. You know, Henderson's just kind of that lengthy press zone corner. The more I kind of watch him, I think he's a better fit here in Jacksonville than Kristian Fulton, where we've been going. But patching up that secondary, I think is a great course of action for Jacksonville. Pick 21, where Carolina traded down. I'm going to double down on the rebuild here in Carolina. I know this is a bold take, but I think there's actually value for Carolina to not add a bunch of good players this year. I would clear up cap space, get rid of some of the older players, let younger guys develop, actually try to tank here because Trevor Lawrence is worth it. So the team moving up here is going to be Indianapolis, coming up for Jake Fromm. And the beauty here is they already robbed the Redskins of the 34th pick last year when they came up for Montez Sweat. So you give up that pick, you give up a future 2nd round pick and a 3rd round. So you're giving up basically, you know, you're already playing with house money with that 34th pick. So you're giving up a future 2nd and then basically using the 3rd round pick to get Jake Fromm, who now can sit behind Phillip Rivers for a year or 2. A lot of people don't like Jake Fromm. I think he's the most illogically hated on player in this class to me. Absolutely a 1st round talent. People sleep on his arm talent all the time. His athleticism, rarely makes mistakes. You got questions about that accuracy. That is why Jimmy Garoppolo is my comparison for him. If you can get Jimmy Garoppolo here in pick 21, you do it every single time, especially when you have the surrounding help that he's going to have here in Indianapolis and the time to develop. Pick 22, Buffalo. This one was pretty easy for me. T. Higgins. You got the deep threat in John Brown. You got Cole Beasley in the slot. Give traditional number 1 a big body target for Josh Allen to kind of help move the sticks, throw extra touchdowns, all that good stuff. Be that bigger body guy for your strong-armed, a little less accurate quarterback. Pick 23, New England. So not getting that quarterback in this situation. Not rolling the dice on like Jacob Eason if I'm the Patriots. Absolutely not. I'm going to grab Mekhi, Mecton, offensive tackle. Starting to slip a little bit here. Now, to me, he's a little more raw. I'm not quite as high on him. But you get to sit him behind Marcus Cannon maybe for a year. Now, Dante Scarnecchia is gone, that developmenting god of an offensive line coach. But I still trust whoever Bill Belichick hires to be good at his job. And maybe you got Mecton and Wynn, a great tackle duo for whoever your quarterback is of the future whenever you decide to figure that out. Pick 24, the New Orleans Saints. We're going to go with Patrick Queen, starting to fall a little bit in this situation. I see him in that 16 to 25 range for sure. Outside of Demario Davis, who's getting a little older, and I think on the last year of his deal anyway, you put more of that athletic. I mean, Demario Davis is very athletic, don't get me wrong, but that cover linebacker, a little undersized, kind of your NFC South Deion Jones counterpart there with Patrick Queen. The Vikings here at pick 25. I'm going to grab offensive tackle Josh Jones. Riley Reiff at left tackle's fine, but he's getting older. His contract's got to be getting close to the end. So I'd actually start Josh Jones at left tackle, kick Reiff inside, start patching up that offensive line that has just neutered this team for multiple seasons now as they try to win with Kirk Cousins. Pick 26, the Miami Dolphins. This isn't ideal to see Mecton and Jones go 2-3 picks before they have their first pick outside of Tua at pick 26. The biggest reason I don't think they should take Tua is because this offensive line is such a disaster. The only guy left that I think is a clear-cut first rounder is Tyler Biadasz. Franchise center out of Wisconsin. I wouldn't say he's unlike Travis Frederick coming out. Just kind of a mauler. Been there for years, just a stud. So you at least secure that center position, but that offensive line to me is in pretty bad shape still. But it's really the best you can do here. Any other tackle pick, I think, has a pretty low floor that I'm not willing to risk in the first round. Seattle at pick 27, we're going to grab Yetur Gross-Matos. Whether you bring Clowney back or not, I don't think they will. I think they realize he's not really worth that max defensive contract, just like they did with Frank Clark, who's probably a better pass rusher anyway. They need pass rushing help. Yetur Gross-Matos is a freak. Still some room to develop there, but few teams in the NFL are better at developing that position than Seattle. They kind of whiffed on LJ Collier, who could have some presence next year. But even if LJ Collier plays next year, you still need a number 2, number 3 guy. So we're going to grab Yetur Gross-Matos. Baltimore Ravens at pick 28. You know, the linebackers are gone. The top receivers are kind of gone here. I'm going to go with Grant Delpit. Super high upside safety. His biggest problem in his final season was tackling, which is weird for a freaky 6'3" Derwin James-esque safety. But if anyone can coach that up, it's Harbaugh and Martindale and turn Grant Delpit into someone like Derwin James. I like Chuck Clark. He's a good player. But he's on the final year of his deal and does not have the upside that you could have in Grant Delpit. Kind of a luxury pick here, but just imagine if you could put Derwin James, Earl Thomas, and those corners all together into one defense. You just might get that here with Grant Delpit, who was one of the best players in his sophomore season and had a down year his junior year, but also dealt with a lot of injuries. So it's a risky pick, but I mean, the upside here I think is too good to turn down if you're Baltimore. Then the Tennessee Titans at 29. Kristian Fulton's going to fall in this situation. Logan Ryan's gone. Malcolm Butler at some point's got to be a cap casualty. That contract just isn't good enough. You got a Dory Jackson there. Maybe you kick Butler into the slot, put Fulton outside. It's definitely a big need and a really good player still sitting there in Kristian Fulton at corner. Then we got the Las Vegas Raiders where they move down. It does get a little tough with like Kristian Fulton, Patrick Queen, T. Higgins gone, C.J. Henderson. Some of their biggest needs there at those positions. I'd think about a Laviska Shenault here. But like I said earlier, you got Jacobs, you got Darren Waller, you got Third and Renfro. You got a pretty good short to intermediate set of receivers there. You already added Alan Lazard on the outside in that trade. So I'm actually looking down the road a little bit. I mentioned earlier the interior offensive line. Definitely a pretty major question mark down the road. Richie Incognito is going to be back. How much do you rely on him, especially for the future? Gabe Jackson kind of wavering at this point, regressing, getting expensive. To me, offensive line is so important. And there's a guy here in Damien Lewis who is a total beast coming out of LSU. gets to learn from Gabe Jackson, gets to learn from Richie Incognito. You get that swingman on the inside as depth. This guy could be an all-pro type of guard. Some of his highlights are just ridiculous. Reminds me a lot of Kaleki Asemele, who this team loved to have years ago when he was in his prime. So to me, this is the epitome of why you kind of trade down, start filling out what can lead to a great, structure in the future. Because unlike a lot of psychotic people out there, I recognize that this Raiders team is not competing for a Super Bowl next year. They just have way too many holes. And now all of a sudden your offense is set up for a long time. And then pick 31, the San Francisco 49ers. Not a lot of needs here. I definitely thought about a tackle like Austin Jackson. Joe Staley is 35 years old. But after I saw what Kyle Shanahan was able to do with Justin Skule and Daniel Brunskill, really low-level investments at tackle. It's not easy to get guys to play like they did. But this scheme is just a monster from running back through offensive line. And I don't know how much I'd prioritize that position if I were them. Now, one position that was pretty good this year but could use an upgrade is cornerback. They need a safety for sure, but the top two guys are gone at this point. Look, Richard Sherman was amazing last year, but how much longer is he going to keep playing like that true number one corner? And then you got Ahkello Witherspoon, Emmanuel Mosley. They're fine. They kind of bounce back and forth on the outside. But Bryce Hall is a perfect fit for this defense. Really good athlete out of Virginia, played a ton of zone coverage, but he can go man as well. And then all of a sudden you got a really good competition with an aging Sherman, Ahkello Witherspoon, Emmanuel Mosley, and Bryce Hall. You're going to emerge with two really high quality corners on the outside for next year. And then pick 32, the Kansas City Chiefs. We're going to stick with Austin Jackson here. Both tackles getting older. They need some help on the inside as well. Jackson's kind of that versatile potential guy that could maybe play guard, could play tackle. Either way, if you're the Chiefs right now, I think you got to start getting worried about the future of that offensive line with the age of that tackle duo. So that is the mock draft. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please do hit that like button. If you want more draft content, check out my Patreon. Drop comments below what you think. Love interacting with you guys. But cheers as always. We'll see you for the next one. Peace out.